Welcome to The Explainer. You know all that political chaos you see in the headlines? What if it wasn't really chaos at all? What if it was all part of a deliberate plan? Today, we're going to unpack a pretty fascinating analysis that lays out a playbook for tearing down the world order, and it's all based on a hypothetical series of events from the very near future. So, it all starts with this. Just imagine for a second. You wake up, and this is the headline. U.S. forces have arrested the president of Venezuela. Now, this isn't some joint operation or a UN mission. No, this is a bold, unilateral military action right in America's backyard.
Then, just a couple of weeks later, this one flashes across your screen, a threat to annex Greenland. I mean, it sounds like something from another century, right? It completely flies in the face of all modern international rules.
And it just keeps going. The U.S. formally pulls out of the World Health Organization. And we're not just talking about a funding cut here. This is a complete exit from the main body that guides global health policy, which is a huge deal, especially after a pandemic.
And then the final piece falls. The New START Treaty, one of the last major agreements keeping a lid on nuclear weapons between the US and Russia, it's not renegotiated. It's just allowed to expire, to just crumble away. So you look at all these events, and they just feel totally disconnected, right? Disruptive, chaotic. But what if they're not random at all? What if they are all connected by one single, very powerful idea? Okay, so how do we possibly make sense of all this? Let's dive in and see if we can connect these dots, find the pattern in all of this noise. So, the key to unlocking this whole thing comes from our source for this explainer, a fictional analysis from a Munich security report. And what it suggests is that there is, in fact, a very deliberate strategy playing out here.
And the name the report gives this strategy, it's pretty unforgettable. They call it demolition politics. It's a strategy designed for one thing: radical rupture. So what exactly is demolition politics? Well, here's the definition. The core idea isn't about reform or making slow, careful changes. No, it's about obliteration. It's about completely tearing down a system that its followers believe is just broken beyond repair.
It basically boils down to three simple core principles. Move fast, don't waste time talking. Break things, don't try to fix them. And act symbolically. Make big, loud gestures of destruction. It's a playbook for disruption. And this slide really shows you just how different this approach is. On one side, you've got the whole system built after World War II, all about cooperation and shared rules. And on the other side, this playbook that's all about going it alone and just rejecting those very structures. And once you have this playbook in mind, all those headlines we saw before, they suddenly start to make a chilling kind of sense. Withdrawing from the WHO isn't just policy, it's rejecting a global body. Letting the treaty expire is a move away from international rules. And Venezuela, a textbook example of unilateral action. It's like they're all moves from the exact same playbook. But that leads to the biggest question of all, right? Why? Why do this? What's the real motivation behind taking a wrecking ball to everything? Well, at the very heart of it is this feeling, and this real quote from back in 2025 captures it perfectly. It's the sense that millions of people are being told that what they care about is invalid. That feeling of being dismissed, it isn't a side issue, it's the actual fuel for demolition politics. And this feeling of being ignored, it comes from a really deep rejection of the direction society has been going in for decades. The report points to these core grievances, things like opposition to globalism or a fear that a certain way of life is just disappearing.
And you might think this is just some fringe belief, but it's not. The data in the report is actually pretty startling. It shows a widespread fear, a majority of people believing that the system itself is about to fail. And when people lose faith in the system like that, well, they become a lot more open to the idea of just tearing it all down. But here's the thing you absolutely have to remember about demolition. The point is never just to destroy something. The goal is to clear the ground so you can build something totally new in its place. And this idea, well, it's not just coming from one side. This quote from a totally different voice in our hypothetical 2026, it shows a much broader feeling. There's this growing acceptance, even from people outside the demolition movement, that the old ways are gone for good. So the real debate now is, what comes next? And that right there, that's the ultimate takeaway from this whole analysis. The demolition playbook is crystal clear on what it wants to tear down, but the blueprint for what gets built in its place, That remains the biggest, most critical question, and it's a question that's going to affect every single one of us.